Alien girl finds out humans glow under her planet's moon. Now she's fascinated. Elias Vance cursed under his breath, the alien dust tasting like crushed glass on his tongue. His small survey vessel, the Stardust Rambler, was a crumpled mockery of its former self, half buried in the ochre-red soil of Silos. The emergency beacon had pulsed for days, a desperate prayer into the void, but the void had remained stubbornly silent. He was alive miraculously, pulled from the wreckage by an automated medical system, but the ship was dead, and so was his comrade. Survival on Silos, a planet known for nothing more than its ancient, overgrown biodomes and fierce, uncatalogued flora, was a gamble. He was a xenobotanist, not a soldier, his toolkit consisting of soil samplers and atmospheric scanners, not pulse rifles. The air here was thin, metallic, yet breathable, and the enormous twin moons, Eril and Lumina, hung like colossal, bruised jewels in the perpetual twilight, casting shifting shadows that played tricks on his exhausted mind. He'd scavenged enough rations for a few weeks, jury-rigged a shelter from a durable piece of hull, and was now attempting to extract a power cell from the ruined engine core, a futile task that at least kept his hands busy. A sudden, sharp rustle in the dense, iridescent foliage behind him snapped him to attention. He grabbed the nearest heavy tool, a pipe wrench, and held it like a club. The silence that followed was more unnerving than the rustle itself, thick and heavy. Then a figure emerged, slow and deliberate, from the swirling crimson mists. She was tall, impossibly graceful, her form a symphony of flowing lines and sharp angles. Her skin shimmered with a subtle, internal light, like liquid starlight, and her eyes, large and multifaceted, seemed to absorb the twilight and reflect it back with an unnerving intensity. She moved with an innate predatory ease, and though she carried no visible weapon, Elias felt an ancient, primal fear grip him. She was clearly not human. Her presence, her very aura, was alien and profoundly powerful. She stopped a few meters away, her head tilted, observing him with an unsettling, calm scrutiny. He noticed even through his terror the intricate patterns that adorned her limbs, glowing faintly, like veins of luminous mineral. The air around her hummed with a low, almost imperceptible resonance. "You are new." Her voice was a melodic whisper, each syllable precise, yet carrying an undertone of deep, resonant power. It was like wind chimes made of iron. Not of Xylos, not of the Lyra 17 star system. He swallowed hard, trying to project an air of calm he didn't feel. Elias Vance, Earth. My ship. Well, you saw it. It's seen better days. He gestured vaguely at the mangled wreckage. Her gaze, however, remained fixed on him, those multifaceted eyes scanning him with an unnerving thoroughness. He felt as if she were dissecting his very essence, understanding him on a level far beyond the superficial. The silence stretched, thick with unspoken questions. He clutched the wrench tighter, his knuckles white. "Look, I don't mean any harm. Just trying to fix my ride and get home. I'm a researcher, not a threat." She took a slow, deliberate step closer, and then another. The internal glow on her skin brightened fractionally, pulsing in time with her deliberate movements. As she drew nearer, he could feel a faint warmth radiating from her, a sense of quiet power. The moonlight from Lumina, now directly overhead, pierced the thinning mist, bathing the clearing in a soft, ethereal luminescence. He felt a strange tingling sensation beneath his own skin, a sensation he couldn't explain. He looked down at his arm, then back at her. Her multifaceted eyes widened, and he saw a flicker of something akin to genuine surprise, even fascination, cross their depth. A soft, almost inaudible gasp escaped her lips, and her internal glow intensified, mirroring his own. "You resonate," she murmured, her voice a low, intrigued hum. "Under Lumina, you glow." The words hung in the air, thick with an unexpected intimacy. Elias looked down at his own skin, illuminated by Lumina's soft light, and then he saw it, a faint, almost imperceptible luminescence, emanating from his forearms. from the skin visible through the rips in his torn jumpsuit. It was like he was outlined in a faint, warm light, a pale blue-green against the crimson backdrop of Xylos. He blinked, bewildered. He'd never seen anything like it. His skin didn't glow. Humans didn't glow. Not unless they'd been exposed to some kind of radiation, and he felt perfectly fine, if a little banged up. He looked back at the alien woman, whose gaze was now entirely fixed on him, her expression a mix of awe and profound curiosity. The predatory glint in her eyes had softened, replaced by an intense, almost scientific fascination. Her own internal shimmer pulsed with a greater intensity now, almost in sync with the faint luminescence radiating from him. "Is that not normal?" he asked, feeling a strange mix of discomfort and a burgeoning sense of wonder. He'd stumbled into something truly bizarre. Her hand, slender and elegant, with joints that seemed to bend at impossible angles, slowly lifted. He tensed, ready to dodge, but she merely hovered at an inch from his face. Her fingers splayed. He could feel the subtle warmth radiating from her palm, a deep, resonant hum that vibrated through the air. Her eyes traced the faint glow on his cheek, then dipped to his neck. "It is unseen," she corrected, her voice still a whisper, but now infused with an almost reverent quality. "A frequency, a resonance, that is unique. It is not of Xylos, nor of any known species. You are a light. Under Lumina." She took another step, closing the distance between them, and the hum intensified, almost filling his ears. Her face, a study in alien grace, was now very close, her multifaceted eyes searching his, as if trying to peer into his very soul. He could feel a strange connection forming, a subtle energetic pull as if an invisible thread now linked them. He instinctively knew this was not a threat, but something else entirely, something ancient and deeply significant to her. Her name, he realized, was still unknown to him. "Who are you?" he asked, his voice softer now, the wrench still clutched, but less aggressively. She seemed to consider the question, her gaze flicking away for a moment, then back to him. "I am Kalen, of the Sylvani. And you, Elias Vance, of Earth, are a paradox, a living beacon. My oath dictates that any foreign presence be judged. But your light, it changes the judgment." Her eyes narrowed slightly, a thoughtful, almost troubled expression clouding their depths. "The elders will be disquieted, perhaps even alarmed. This resonance, it aligns with ancient prophecies, unsettling ones." The mention of prophecies and elders added a layer of complexity he hadn't anticipated. He wasn't just a crash survivor, he was now apparently a walking, glowing paradox. "Prophecies?" he repeated, a dry laugh escaping him. "Great, just what I needed. Look, Kalen, can we skip the Chosen One stuff? I just need to fix my ship." He lowered the wrench, gesturing to the mangled vessel. "I don't want to cause any trouble." She followed his gaze to the Rambler, then back to him. Her internal glow pulsed with a flicker of what he interpreted as amusement, though her face remained impassive. "Your vessel is beyond repair, human. It is a tomb. As for trouble, it finds those who carry such resonance. And it finds those who are bound by tradition to eliminate perceived anomalies." Her words were delivered with a cold, almost clinical precision that sent a shiver down his spine. He understood then. Her initial judgment was less about hostility and more about a rigid cultural protocol, and his glow had just complicated it. He shifted his weight, feeling the lingering ache from the crash. "So what? You're going to dissect me to figure out why I glow? Or just dispose of the anomaly?" He tried for a casual tone, but his heart hammered against his ribs. Kalen's multifaceted eyes held his, unblinking. "The Sylvani do not dispose of anomalies, Elias Vance. We categorize. We understand. Or, if the anomaly poses a threat to the ancient compacts, we integrate." Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion, yet the word integrate hung in the air with a chilling ambiguity. "You are on hallowed ground. This biodome is not merely overgrown flora. It is a shrine. For generations my lineage has guarded it, protected it from those who would exploit its power. Before he could respond, a distant, high-pitched wail pierced the twilight, followed by a rhythmic thudding that resonated through the ground. Kalen's posture stiffened instantly, her internal glow dimming, then flaring with a sudden, intense blue light. Her gaze snapped towards the direction of the sound, a flicker of something akin to alarm in her eyes. "Vrakar," she hissed, the single word sounding like a curse. "They hunt. They know I am here. Your arrival," it was heard. It drew them. Elias felt a cold knot form in his stomach. He didn't know what a Vrakar was, but the sheer visceral intensity of Kalen's reaction told him it was very bad news. "Who are the Vrakar?" he whispered, glancing nervously towards the sound. "Rival bloodlines," she replied, her voice now edged with a fierce resolve. "They seek to usurp the ancient sites, to twist their power for their own corrupted ends. They are the reason for my exile. And now, your presence here has complicated their plans." She grabbed his arm, her grip surprisingly strong, yet oddly gentle, and pulled him towards a dense thicket of glowing, bioluminescent flora. The touch sent a jolt through him, a strange, energetic current that resonated with the faint glow of his own skin. "They will scour this sector. You must remain unseen. Your resonance, it is a beacon to them as well, though they do not understand its nature. They would use it, exploit it." She pushed him deeper into the foliage, the luminous leaves brushing against his face, feeling cool and damp. He could hear the thudding grow louder, closer, accompanied now by harsh, guttural calls. Kalen moved with silent efficiency, pulling him through the tangled growth, deeper into the biodome's interior. He was a xenobotanist, but this wasn't his garden. This was a wild, alien sanctuary, and he was being thrust into its ancient, dangerous politics. He could only hope that Kalen's sudden, urgent need for his concealment meant she hadn't yet decided on his integration or disposal. His glowing skin, he realized, was not just a curiosity, it was a potential liability, a lure for the unknown dangers of Silos. They huddled in a hollow beneath the sprawling roots of an ancient gnarled tree that pulsed with a deep, rhythmic light. Kalen's body was pressed against his, her presence a strange mix of rigidity and unexpected softness. He could feel the warmth radiating from her, and the subtle hum of her internal glow now muted to a faint thrumming. Outside, the sounds of the Vrakar grew louder, their heavy footfalls shaking the ground. He could make out glimpses of their figures through the leaves, bulky, armored forms, their eyes gleaming with predatory intent. They carried crude, energy-based weapons that crackled with malevolent light. "They are searching for the anomaly," Kalen whispered, her voice low and tight, her breath ghosting across his ear. "They knew of a breach, but not its nature. Your rambler," it disturbed the words, Elias whispered back, trying to keep his voice steady. He felt a bead of sweat trickle down his temple. This was far beyond crashed ship repairs and botanical surveys. Like magical wards? He heard the faint rustle of her internal body structures, a subtle movement that suggested a sigh. Ancient protections, woven from the biodome's inherent energies centuries ago to repel invasive forces. Your vessel, in its descent, shattered them. Her tone conveyed a quiet accusation, but no anger. It was simply a statement of fact. They seek a breach point, a weakness to exploit the heart of the biodome, and now they sense your resonance. One of the Vrakar patrols seemed to halt directly above them. Elias held his breath, his heart thundering. He could feel the rough texture of Kalen's arm pressed against his, the subtle rise and fall of her chest. Her scent was earthy, like damp soil and blooming night flowers, mixed with something sharp and metallic. A Vrakar grunted above them, a rough, guttural sound, followed by the distinctive thud of a heavy boot. Then, a low growl. Kalen tensed, her internal light flaring momentarily. Elias saw it, felt it, a surge of energy that made his own faint glow respond. He squeezed his eyes shut, wishing he could just disappear. After what felt like an eternity, the heavy footsteps moved away, receding into the general sounds of the hunt. Kaelin slowly relaxed, her light dimming again. She didn't move away from him. "They will return," she stated, her voice calm once more. "This biodome, it is the last sanctuary for the sacred resonance of my ancestors. They have sought to corrupt it for generations." She finally shifted, turning her head slightly to look at him. You bring a light, a raw, untamed frequency. The Vrakar would bind it, twist it to their own dark purposes. It is a power they crave, even if they do not comprehend its purity. Elias felt a chill deeper than the thin air. Purity? So I'm a battery? A glowing power cell? He tried to inject some sarcasm into his voice, to cut through the mounting tension, but it fell flat. Kaelin's head tilted again, a curious gesture. "Your humor is difficult to process. You speak of energy, yes, but it is not a power to be contained by crude mechanisms. It is a resonance, a symbiotic frequency, a deep, ancient understanding. The legends speak of a resonator, a being whose inherent vibrational signature can either restore or shatter the ancestral compacts." She paused, her multifaceted eyes fixed on him. "I am bound by my oath to protect this place, to ensure the purity of the resonance, and now, you are part of it." He processed her words, the implications dawning on him. He wasn't just a crash victim, he was a walking MacGuffin. "So, you're saying I'm this resonator, and your enemies want to shatter the compacts with my glow?" He gestured weakly at his faintly shimmering skin. "This is ridiculous. I'm just a guy who got lost in space." He was a survivor, yes, but not a legendary figure. Kaelin's expression, however, remained serious. "The legends are not open to interpretation, Elias Vance. They simply are. Your presence here on the night of Lumine's full phase, and your unique resonance, it is not coincidence. It is alignment, and it is a profound threat to the Vrakar." She began to crawl forward, deeper into the dark, root-tangled tunnels beneath the giant tree. "We must reach the inner sanctum. It is the only place where the Vrakar's crude sensing devices cannot penetrate, and where your resonance might be." "Understood." Elias hesitated, then followed. He had no other choice. Out here, he was prey. With Kaelin, there was at least a chance of survival, even if it meant being a pawn in an ancient alien conflict. The tunnels grew narrower, the air cooler and heavy with the scent of damp earth and something metallic like ozone. Kaelin moved effortlessly, her internal glow now a steady, guiding light in the oppressive darkness. He relied on her completely, trusting her instincts in this alien labyrinth. The constant, close proximity was unnerving, yet he found a strange comfort in it, a sense of shared fate. "Why are you in exile?" he asked, the words tumbling out before he could second-guess himself. He felt her stiffen slightly ahead of him. The hum of her internal light wavered, a subtle flicker. "My lineage," she began, her voice low, "has guarded this biodome for centuries. It is our ancestral duty. But the Vrakar, they sowed dissent among the clans. They accused my predecessor, my mother, of contaminating the ancient rituals, of attempting to weaponize the resonance. I was exiled to prevent further strife, to preserve the tenuous peace, to ensure the compacts would not be broken by infighting." He heard the unspoken grief in her words, the weight of a heavy burden. "So, you're stuck here because of a lie?" he asked, a familiar human indignation rising within him. "A political maneuver?" Kaelin sighed, a soft, almost imperceptible sound. The truth of a claim matters little when the balance of power is at stake. The accusation served the Vrakar's purpose. "My exile was a sacrifice. It allowed the clans to remain, mostly, united against a greater external threat, while the Vrakar consolidated their influence over other sacred sites." Her voice, though still formal, held a hint of weary resignation. "And now, you, the resonator, have arrived. It is a development neither side could have foreseen. It will either tip the balance or shatter it irrevocably." They finally emerged into a cavernous, subterranean chamber, carved from obsidian-like rock, its walls pulsating with intricate, luminous glyphs. The air here was warm, thick with a deep, resonant hum, and the soft, perpetual light of lumina filtered down from unseen vents, bathing the chamber in an ethereal blue glow. Elias looked around, awestruck. This was no natural cave. It was an ancient temple, humming with latent energy. A vast, circular plinth stood in the center, adorned with more glowing glyphs. He recognized some of them from his research into ancient alien cultures, symbols denoting creation, balance, and cosmic alignment. Kaelin moved towards the plinth, her internal light intensifying, mirroring the energy of the chamber. "This is the nexus," she stated, her voice imbued with a newfound reverence, "the heart of the biodome, where the ancestral compacts were forged, where the resonance is purest." She turned to face him, her eyes shining with an almost feverish intensity. The Vrakar believe that if they corrupt this nexus, they can control all of Xylos. They believe the resonator is a key to that power. "And what do you believe?" Elias asked, his gaze fixed on her. She seemed to glow brighter here, as if drawing power from the very air. "I believe," she said slowly, "that the resonator's purpose is to restore balance, not to be exploited, not to shatter, to reforge." The legends speak of a time when the resonator would appear, heralded by the fracturing of the ancient wards, under the full light of lumina, to unite the disparate energies. She extended a hand towards him, her fingers splayed, beckoning. "Your light, Elias Vance, is not just a curiosity. It is a signal, and we have very little time." The hum in the chamber intensified, a low thrum that vibrated through his very bones. He could still hear the distant sounds of the Vrakara, muffled but persistent, searching, getting closer. The ancient prophecies and his glowing skin felt like a heavy cloak he'd been forced to wear. He didn't want to be anyone's savior or anyone's key. He just wanted to go home. But home seemed impossibly far away now. "So, what do we do?" he asked, his voice rough. Kaelin's expression was grim. "We wait. The Vrakar will find their way here. But they will not find us unprepared." She pointed to a set of depressions on the plinth's surface. "And then, we prepare for the ritual." Elias felt a cold dread. Rituals in alien temples rarely ended well for the human outsider. But the way Kaelin looked at him, with such a mixture of desperation and determined resolve, told him he had no choice. His survival was inextricably linked to hers, and to the fate of this glowing ancient biodome. Hours crawled by in the Nexus chamber. The air vibrated with a palpable tension, a mix of the biodome's ancient energy and the looming threat. Elias leaned against a smooth, cool pillar, watching Kaelin. She moved with quiet determination, examining the glyphs, touching the plinth, her multifaceted eyes scanning the ancient symbols as if reading a story only she could comprehend. Her internal glow pulsed softly, reflecting the ambient light of the chamber, which seemed to grow brighter as lumina reached its zenith outside. Elias's own glow, he noticed, was no longer just on his skin. It seemed to be a soft, blue-green aura, emanating from his entire body. It felt warm, not hot, but an internal heat that spread through his limbs, making his muscles feel less sore, his mind clearer. "You're really glowing now," he commented, the dry humor a coping mechanism. Kaelin turned, her gaze sweeping over him, and a flicker of genuine wonder crossed her alien features. "The Nexus amplifies the resonance," she explained, her voice quiet. "It accepts you. This place, it recognizes the alignment." She walked towards him, her movements fluid and unhurried despite the encroaching danger. "The Vrakar are not far. Their probes are piercing the outer wards now. They will reach this chamber within the hour." She reached out, her hand hovering over his chest, not quite touching. He could feel the warmth of her proximity, the faint hum of her own energy. "The ritual, it is not for the faint of heart, Elias Vance. It will demand everything." "What is the ritual exactly?" he asked, a knot forming in his stomach. "More than just glowing, I assume." Kaelin's gaze was solemn. "It is a pulse resonance sync. a merging of core frequencies. It allows the resonator to channel the ancestral power of the nexus, to restore the compacts, and to repel those who seek to corrupt them. It is a symbolic weapon, yes, but also a profound union. She finally touched him, her slender fingers resting lightly on his sternum. A jolt, powerful and yet not unpleasant, shot through him. It felt like his entire being hummed in response, vibrating in sync with hers. The blue-green aura around him intensified, flickering like a nascent flame. A union? He echoed, his voice a little strained. As in, it bonds us? Kaelin nodded, her eyes unwavering. Irrevocably. Our frequencies, once merged, cannot be separated without consequences. It is a bond mark given only once. It will bind our fates. He stared at her, dumbfounded. Irrevocably bound? Kaelin, I'm a human. You're an alien. We just met. I don't even know what consequences means. He felt a sudden, desperate urge to flee, but there was nowhere to go, and the Vrakkar were coming. It means, she said, her voice dropping to a low, almost intimate tone, that our essences will resonate, that our shared existence will be intertwined. It is the only way to protect the nexus, to fulfill the prophecy, and to survive. A sudden sharp crack echoed from above, followed by the clatter of loose rock. The Vrakkar were breaching the inner layers. Kaelin pulled him towards the plinth, her urgency palpable now. Stand on the central disk, she commanded, her voice firm. Elias, still reeling from the implications of an irrevocable bond, stumbled onto the plinth. The surface beneath his feet felt warm, almost alive, and the glowing glyphs beneath him pulsed with renewed vigor. Kaelin moved around him, her hands sweeping over the plinth's surface, activating more ancient symbols. The hum in the chamber rose to a crescendo, a deep, pervasive vibration that resonated through his bones. When the Vrakkar enter, Kaelin continued, her voice rising above the hum, I will initiate the sync. Your energy, amplified by the nexus, will become a protective barrier, a wave of pure resonance. She stood opposite him, her hands resting on either side of the plinth. Her internal glow was now a brilliant, blinding white, casting her face in stark relief. Her eyes, usually so calm, blazed with a fierce, almost terrifying resolve. Are you ready, Elias Vance? She asked, her voice quiet, but laced with a profound, unspoken weight. He looked at her, at the ancient temple, at his own glowing hands, and then at the sounds of the Vrakkar growing closer. He wasn't ready. Not for any of this. But he was alive, and she was here. As I'll ever be, he muttered, a grim acceptance settling over him. Just then, a section of the chamber wall exploded inwards, showering them with debris. 3 hulking Vrakkar warriors, their crude energy weapons powered up and humming, burst into the nexus, their eyes, beady and malicious, immediately fixed on Elias's glowing form. A guttural snarl ripped through the air. The resonator, one of them roared, raising its weapon. Kaelin didn't hesitate. Now, she cried, and slammed her hands onto the plinth's surface. A blinding surge of energy erupted from the plinth, enveloping Elias and Kaelin in a vortex of pure light. The hum became a roar, an overwhelming torrent of sound and sensation. Elias felt his body vibrate uncontrollably, his blue-green glow intensifying to an unbearable brilliance. He saw Kaelin's face, etched with fierce concentration, as she channeled the energy. Her hands, still touching the plinth, were outlined in crackling energy. Then, a wave of sensation unlike anything he had ever experienced washed over him. It wasn't just physical. It was as if his very consciousness was being stretched, pulled, and then merged with Kaelin's. He saw glimpses of her memories, the quiet despair of her exile, the fierce love for her mother, the vastness of the biodome, centuries of guardianship, the cold, predatory gaze of the Vrakkar. He felt her grief, her determination, her profound connection to this ancient place, and she, he realized, was experiencing his. brief, flashing images of Earth, of his own quiet life as a botanist, of the loneliness of deep space, of the simple pleasure of good coffee. It was overwhelming, intimate, and terrifying. Their essences were not just touching, they were intermingling, weaving together in a dance of pure energy. A searing heat pulsed through his core, and he felt a primal urge, an aching need to connect, to complete this bond. It wasn't just a physical sensation, it was an emotional imperative, amplified by the overwhelming energy of the Nexus. The Vrokar warriors screamed, their energy weapons sputtering and shorting out as the wave of resonance washed over them. They stumbled back, clutching their heads, their armored forms glowing momentarily before being violently repelled, flung back through the breached wall with a sound like shattering stone. The chamber vibrated with the aftermath of the expulsion, the energy still thrumming around them slowly receding. Elias gasped, collapsing to his knees on the plinth, his body shaking uncontrollably. The blinding glow faded to a gentle thrumming hum, still radiating from him, but no longer overwhelming. Kaelin, too, was trembling, her hands still resting on the plinth, her white light dimming to a soft, warm flicker. She slowly sank beside him, her gaze meeting his. Her multifaceted eyes were wide, filled with a raw, vulnerable emotion he hadn't seen before. Her formal composure had shattered. "It is done," she whispered, her voice hoarse, laced with a tremor. "The sync is complete." The shared memory, the brief, shattering intimacy of their minds merging, lingered between them, a tangible presence. He felt her exhaustion, her profound relief, and something else, a deep, resonant echo of his own surprise and fear. Her formal barrier had fallen, revealing a torrent of complex emotions beneath. Elias could feel a strange emptiness in his chest, and an equally strange fullness. It was like he had lost a part of himself and gained something profound in its place. He was irrevocably linked to her. "What? What was that?" he managed, his voice shaky. "I saw, I felt." He couldn't articulate the totality of the experience. Kaelin reached out, her hand hovering over his face, then gently cupped his cheek. Her touch was soft, hesitant, yet carried the unmistakable warmth of her internal glow. "Our frequencies merged, Elias. Our core essences aligned. It is a truth bond, a resonance. You have seen my burdens. I have seen your solitude." She pulled her hand back, her eyes clouding with a complex mix of wonder and a dawning understanding. The Nexus. It demanded more than just energy. It demanded a surrender, a complete giving, a blush. A subtle shifting of colors beneath her shimmering skin spread across her high cheekbones. It was the first truly human-like emotional display he had seen from her. He realized, with a jolt, that the raw, primal energy of the sync had stripped away her carefully constructed emotional barriers. She was vulnerable, exposed, and so was he. He could still feel the faint hum of her presence within him, a constant, gentle pressure behind his own thoughts, a deep, comforting warmth in his core. It wasn't just a spiritual or emotional bond. It was a physical sensation, an integration that defied logic. "So, what now?" he asked, his voice softer, recognizing the delicate balance of the moment. The Vrokar were gone, for now, but the intimacy between them was almost overwhelming. Kaelin's gaze dropped from his face, her eyes fixed on his chest, where his blue-green glow pulsed gently. "The bond is deep," she murmured, her voice barely audible. "It permeates the cellular level. The purpose of the sync is to complete the prophecy, to channel the Nexus's power, but it also creates a new resonant pair." Her head tilted back, her eyes looking at him with a startling intensity. "My people, they do not permit such casual merging. This is not a ritual of choice. It is a binding, a completion." He understood. This wasn't just about saving the biodome. It was about an accidental, forced union, a permanent alteration of their beings. The irrevocable part wasn't just symbolic. The air around them seemed to thicken with unspoken implications. The energy of the nexus, though less intense, still hummed, a silent witness to their unplanned profound connection. Kalen's gaze searched his, her eyes holding a complex mix of apprehension and a dawning, raw desire. The formal tactician had been stripped bare, revealing the alien woman beneath. He felt an undeniable pull towards her, a magnetism that went beyond physical attraction. Born from the shared trauma and the unprecedented intimacy of the sink, the air crackled with a new kind of tension, an electric current that had nothing to do with ancient rituals and everything to do with two beings, irrevocably linked, in a very small, very warm, very powerful space. Her eyes, still wide and luminous, flickered downwards, tracing the lines of his body, then back up to his face. The soft, resonant hum of her internal glow intensified, mirroring the pulse of his own. A new kind of silence filled the chamber, different from the tense quiet of waiting for enemies. This was a silence heavy with discovery, with the aftermath of an unparalleled intimacy that had shattered their boundaries. He could feel her gaze like a physical touch, exploring him with a frankness that was alien yet deeply compelling. The raw data of his being, exposed to her during the sync, made any pretense between them impossible. She knew his loneliness, his fears, his quiet yearning for connection, and he knew her burdens, her grief, her desperate hope for her people. The consequences, Kalen whispered, her voice hoarse, are not merely social or spiritual. They are physiological. She lifted a trembling hand, her fingers brushing lightly against his cheek, then tracing the line of his jaw. The touch sent a ripple of sensation through his entire being, a deep, resonant thrum that vibrated through his core. His own glow brightened, responding to her proximity, to the profound shift that had just occurred within him. Our bodies, they seek to align, to complete the resonance. It is a primal imperative, a new compact. Her gaze dropped to his lips, then to his throat, and the movement of color beneath her shimmering skin intensified. Elias felt a profound pull, a physical ache that echoed the emotional connection forged by the sync. It was a need born not of simple desire, but of a biological imperative, a craving for completion. The nexus hummed around them, lending its ancient power to the moment, amplifying every sensation. He reached out, his hand finding hers, fingers intertwining. Her skin, cool and smooth against his, felt oddly familiar, a perfect fit. Her multifaceted eyes searched his, a silent question passing between them. He leaned closer, and she met him, her body a delicate symphony of shifting light and subtle hums. Their lips met, tentative at first, then with a fierce, almost desperate urgency. Her mouth was soft, yielding, and tasted faintly of the metallic air of xylose, and something else, something sweet and primal. The kiss deepened, a powerful torrent of emotion and physical need unleashed by the ritual. His hands found the small of her back, pulling her closer, feeling the delicate ridges of her spine beneath the shimmering fabric of her garment. Her internal glow pulsed against his skin, a soft, warm light that seemed to melt into him. Kalen gasped into the kiss, her body molding against his, a low, guttural purr emanating from deep within her chest. She wrapped her arms around his neck, pulling him down onto the plinth, the ancient surface surprisingly soft beneath them. Her legs slid between his, the movement surprisingly bold, assertive. Every touch, every brush of skin, sent electric currents through his body, amplified by the lingering resonance of the sync. This wasn't just physical, it was a profound merging, a continuation of the ritual by other means. He felt the subtle shifts in her internal physiology, the rhythm of her unique heartbeat, the almost imperceptible changes in her luminescence as their bodies aligned. She was exquisitely alien, yet profoundly familiar, a mirror to the new resonant being he had become. Her hands tangled in his hair, pulling him closer, her whispered sounds of pleasure, alien syllables that nevertheless resonated deep within his own core. The air in the nexus chamber grew thick with their shared heat, the ambient light of lumina and the ancient glyphs seeming to pulse in time with their escalating intimacy. He had never imagined anything like this. A physical union so deeply entwined with spiritual and energetic bonding. It was a revelation, a complete surrender to the primal force that now bound them. When it was over, they lay tangled together on the plinth, breathless, their bodies still humming with the aftershocks of the profound experience. Kaelin's head rested on his chest, her internal glow a soft, constant warmth against his skin. He could feel her pulse, a rapid, insistent beat, and hear the gentle, almost purring sounds emanating from her. The profound emotional reversal was immediate. The formal, stoic Kaelin was gone, replaced by a soft, vulnerable being whose body was still trembling faintly. He felt a fierce protectiveness rise within him, a sense of belonging he hadn't known he craved. The silence in the chamber was no longer tense, but intimate, filled with the echoes of their shared breath. Kaelin stirred, lifting her head. Her multifaceted eyes were still wide, her expression a mixture of confusion, awe, and a hint of fear. I have never experienced such surrender, she murmured, her voice husky. The sync, it was more than the channeling of power. It was a completion. She looked at him, her gaze raw and searching. This is a deviation, Elias. A profound disruption of my oath. My people, they will not understand. He knew the weight of her words. She was in exile, bound by duty, and now she had forged a bond with a human that defied all her cultural norms. It was a radical shift, a commitment born not of choice, but of cosmic alignment and desperate survival. He reached up, gently stroking her shimmering hair which felt like cool silk against his fingers. We survived, he said, his voice quiet, and we did it together. Whatever this bond means, we'll figure it out, together. He felt the resonance between them deepen, a subtle shift in the hum that encompassed them both. He wasn't just Elias Vance, crash-landed botanist anymore. He was something new, something intrinsically linked to this alien woman and her ancient world. The implications were vast, terrifying, and unexpectedly thrilling. The Vrakar would come again, but now they would face a united front, a bond forged in prophecy and raw primal energy. He pulled her closer, pressing a kiss to her brow. She sighed, a deep shuddering breath, and leaned into his embrace, her small purring sounds a testament to the shattered formality and newfound vulnerability. But the quiet moment was shattered by a sudden, distant alarm, a high-pitched, metallic shriek that echoed through the biodome. Kaelin tensed, her head snapping up. Her internal glow flared. A vivid blue. Vrakar, she hissed, her voice reverting to a sharper, more tactical tone. But this is different. They have brought a device, something to overcome the Nexus's defenses. Elias felt a cold dread in his stomach. They were still recovering, still reeling from the emotional and physical intensity of the sync. What kind of device? He asked, pushing himself up, his muscles aching but infused with a strange new energy. Kaelin was already on her feet, moving with swift grace towards the breached wall. A resonance disruptor, designed to unravel the very energy that sustains the biodome, and to sever bonds such as ours. Her voice was grim. They have adapted. They now understand the nature of your light, and they mean to extinguish it. Permanently, the ground began to vibrate with a low, insidious hum, a counter-frequency to the Nexus's resonant energy. The glowing glyphs on the walls flickered, their light dimming precariously. The Vrakar had returned, not just with warriors, but with technology designed to combat the Nexus's ancient power, and to unmake the bond that now inextricably linked Elias and Kaelin. The stakes had just escalated dramatically. He was no longer just the resonator, but the target, and Kaelin, her formal self shattered by their union, was now bound to protect him, and the biodome against an enemy determined to undo everything they had just forged. The true battle, he realized, had just begun. The low, insidious hum of the Vrakar's resonance disruptor filled the Nexus chamber, a discordant counterpoint to the biodome's natural thrum. The luminous glyphs on the walls flickered, their ancient power straining under the assault. Kaelin's internal glow, usually vibrant, was now a muted, struggling flicker. "They are trying to unravel the very fabric of the Nexus," she stated, her voice tight with urgency. "To sever the ancestral compacts, and to break our bond." She gestured towards the breached wall, where more Vrakar warriors were entering, flanked by two larger armored constructs humming with dark energy. These were different, more formidable. "We need to stop that device," Elias said, his mind racing. His muscles still hummed with residual energy from the sink, a strange power that felt both alien and intimately his own. "How do we do that?" Kaelin's gaze fixed on the constructs. "Those are amplifiers. They are channeling the disruptor's energy. We must disable them. The core disruptor will be too heavily guarded." She pulled a shimmering, elongated blade from a hidden sheath on her back. A ritual weapon, he realized, made of the same luminous material as the glyphs. It pulsed with a soft, steady light, an extension of her own internal glow. "I will engage the Vrakar warriors," she declared, her stance shifting into a defensive posture. You must use your resonance. Focus it. Direct it at the amplifiers. The sync has given you a unique capacity." Elias felt a surge of apprehension. He barely understood his resonance, let alone how to weaponize it. "Direct it how? What am I supposed to do, glow harder?" He tried for humor, but it barely registered. Kaelin glanced at him, her multifaceted eyes sharp. "Focus on their energy signature. Feel the disruption. And then push back. With your own light." The Vrakar charged, their energy weapons crackling. Kaelin met them with a blur of motion, her blade a shimmering arc of light. She moved with impossible speed and grace, deflecting their blasts, her internal glow flaring with each strike. She was a whirlwind of controlled violence, a warrior priestess defending her sacred ground. Elias watched, stunned by her ferocity, then forced himself to focus. He closed his eyes, concentrating on the grating hum of the disruptor, trying to locate the specific frequency of the amplifiers. He felt the subtle vibrations in the air, the discordant notes, and then slowly, a sensation of pressure in his chest, a yearning to push back. He opened his eyes, the blue-green aura around him intensifying. He extended his hands towards the amplifiers, imagining his unique resonance, the very energy that had flowed through him during the sync, pushing out, countering the Vrakar's destructive force. He felt a strange warmth spread from his palms, a wave of shimmering light that pulsed towards the constructs. One of the amplifiers sputtered, its hum wavering, then crackled with internal light and exploded, showering sparks. The other Vrakar warriors faltered, momentarily distracted. Kaelin pressed her advantage, her blade flashing, taking down another warrior. "Yes, Elias," she cried, her voice ringing with renewed hope. "Maintain the focus." He concentrated, pushing harder, pouring his will into the strange new power within him. He felt a drain, a deep exhaustion beginning to set in, but the thought of their broken bond, of the biodome succumbing, pushed him forward. The second amplifier groaned, its energy signature buckling under his directed resonance, and then it too detonated in a shower of sparks and smoke. The pervasive hum of the disruptor lessened, weakening significantly. The remaining Vrakar, stripped of their enhanced weaponry, roared in frustration. One of them, larger and more heavily armored, turned its attention to Elias, raising a specialized weapon that seemed designed to drain energy. "The resonator dies," it bellowed, firing a beam of dark energy. Kaelin, anticipating the move, threw herself in front of Elias, her blade intercepting the blast. The force of it threw her back, slamming her against a pillar, and her internal glow dimmed precariously. "Kaelin!" Elias cried, his heart lurching. He felt the surge of protectiveness, of primal rage, that had been forged in the sink. He ran to her, but she waved him back, struggling to her feet. "The core disruptor," she gasped, pointing past the remaining warriors to a final larger device embedded in the wall. guarded by the most heavily armored Vrakar. It is vulnerable now. Elias understood. His resonance, amplified, had weakened the disruptor's field. Now was their chance. He had to trust her, had to keep fighting. He focused again, not on the amplifiers this time, but on the main disruptor itself, and the Vrakar guarding it. He poured all his remaining strength, all his will, into a single, concentrated burst of blue-green light. The resonance erupted from him, a silent, powerful wave that impacted the Vrakar, making them stumble, their armor crackling. The disruptor itself vibrated violently, its dark hum sputtering. The Vrakar guarding it cried out, falling to their knees, their armor glowing briefly before shorting out. Elias collapsed, gasping for air, the last of his energy spent, but the disruptor was silenced. The biodome's inherent hum slowly began to reassert itself. Kaelin, seeing his exhaustion, moved with renewed urgency. She swept past the disoriented Vrakar, her blade a blur of motion, dispatching the remaining warriors with swift, precise strikes. The leader, the heavily armored Vrakar that had fired on Elias, let out a final guttural scream as Kaelin's blade found its mark, piercing its core. The last of the Vrakar collapsed, and then silence descended, broken only by Elias's ragged breathing and Kaelin's soft gasps. She stood over the fallen foe, her chest heaving, her internal light still flickering but stronger now. She had won. They had won. Kaelin knelt beside him, her gaze scanning him, her features etched with concern. "Elias," she whispered, her hand gently touching his face. Her skin was cool, almost cold, against his, but he could feel the faint warmth of her internal glow returning. "Are you whole?" He nodded, a weak smile touching his lips. "Just tired," and glowing a little less intensely. He looked at her, at the quiet determination in her eyes. "You're an incredible warrior, Kaelin." A subtle blush, a faint shift of colors beneath her shimmering skin appeared. It was a gesture of vulnerability he now recognized as a sign of her unexpected pleasure. "And you, Elias Vance," she replied, her voice soft, "are a resonator, a profound, living nexus. The prophecy, it is fulfilled." The sound of distant echoing footsteps, lighter than the Vrakar's heavy tread, reached them from the upper levels of the biodome. Kaelin tensed, then relaxed, her internal glow brightening with relief. "My people," she murmured, "the elders. They have sensed the Nexus's restoration, the Vrakar's defeat." Elias pushed himself up, still feeling weak, but strangely resolute. This was it. The moment of truth. Would they accept him? Would they accept their bond? Or would he, the glowing human anomaly, simply be another problem for them to categorize or integrate in a less agreeable way? The first of the Sylvani elders entered the Nexus chamber. They were older, their internal glows more subdued, their movements slower, but their presence carried an undeniable weight of authority. They wore robes of intricate, luminous weave, and their multifaceted eyes, much like Kaelin's, regarded Elias with intense scrutiny. They immediately noticed his faint, persistent glow and the undeniable aura of resonance that now emanated from him. Kaelin stepped forward, bowing respectfully, her posture regal despite her exhaustion. "Elders," she began, her voice formal once more, but with an underlying current of fierce pride. "The Vrakar have been repelled. The Nexus is cleansed. The Resonator has come." One of the elders, a figure of ancient wisdom, whose skin shimmered with a pale, steady light, stepped forward. "Kaelin." Her voice was a deep, resonant hum, filled with centuries of experience. "You have defied your exile. You have brought an outsider into the sacred nexus, and you bear the mark of a forced bond. Explain this breach of compact." Kaelin's eyes met the elder's, unwavering. "My defiance was in service of the compact, elder. The Vrakar brought a device to shatter the nexus, to destroy the ancestral resonance. Only the resonator, Elias Vance, whose light aligns with the prophecy, could repel them. Our bond was forged in desperation, by the nexus itself, to channel his power and restore the balance. The elder's gaze flickered to Elias, then back to Kellen. A forced bond? A human? This is unheard of. A desecration. Another elder stepped forward, her voice sharp. The prophecy speaks of a resonator. Yes, but not of a being so alien. His very presence could corrupt our lineage. Elias felt a pang of despair. He was still just the anomaly. Carolyn, however, turned to him, her eyes holding his, and a faint, subtle blue glow pulsed from her. A direct communication he felt deep in his bones. Stand firm. This is our truth. His light, Carolyn stated, turning back to the elders, her voice ringing with newfound conviction, is pure, untouched by our historical conflicts. It is this purity that allowed the Nexus to accept him, to amplify him. He shattered the Vrocker's disruptor, not with our magic, but with a unique human resonance, a resonance that aligns with the ancient compacts in a way no Sylvani has achieved for generations. She then projected a silent echo of the recent battle into the minds of the elders, the desperate fight, the raw power of Elias's glow, the sudden, overwhelming force of the sink, and the Vrocker's defeat. It was a risky move, revealing the deep intimacy of their bond, but also the undeniable truth of their shared survival and victory. The elders absorbed the telepathic echoes, their expressions shifting from skepticism to grudging comprehension, and then to a hesitant awe. The ancient elder, the first one to speak, stepped closer to Elias. Her multifaceted eyes scrutinized him, taking in the faint blue-green aura that still enveloped him. She reached out a hand, and for a terrifying moment, Elias thought she might strike him. Instead, her cool, wise fingers gently brushed his glowing cheek. "The Nexus does not lie," she murmured, her voice filled with a profound wonder. "And the Vrockar are indeed defeated. Their influence shattered from this biodome. The resonance, it is undeniable." She withdrew her hand, her gaze settling on Kalen. "Your exile is lifted, Kalen. You have proven your loyalty not through rigid adherence, but through desperate, necessary action. You have protected the Nexus, and you have brought forth the resonator." However, she paused, her eyes sweeping over Elias again. "The implications of this bond, this joining, are vast, unprecedented. The traditions of our people will need to adapt. This is a path we have never walked." Kalen bowed her head in acceptance, her internal glow shining steadily. The elder turned back to Elias, a flicker of something akin to curiosity in her ancient eyes. "Elias Vance of Earth, you are no longer merely an outsider, you are the resonator. Your fate is now intertwined with that of Xylos. Will you embrace this unexpected destiny?" Elias looked at Kalen, whose hand had found his, intertwining their fingers. Her touch was a silent promise, a shared future. He was a long way from home, his ship a wreck, his life as a xenobotanist irrevocably changed. But he had found a bond, a connection deeper than any he could have imagined. And the biodome hummed around him, a silent testament to a destiny he was, surprisingly, willing to embrace. "I will," Elias said, his voice firm, echoing in the sacred chamber. "I will." He looked at Kalen, at the soft, luminous shimmer of her skin, at the promise in her multifaceted eyes. "We will." A faint, almost imperceptible smile touched Kalen's lips, and her internal glow pulsed with a warmth that reached his very soul. The future was uncertain, filled with challenges and the merging of two wildly different cultures, but for the first time in a long time, Elias felt truly, profoundly at home.